I'm here with the Public Library of Brookline's Idea Space Craft Along program, and this week we have an extra special Craft Along program for everyone. We're here with a whole bunch of really awesome guests from around Brookline to talk about how they have been making cotton face masks for different people in the community, and also to learn from them how to make a really easy sew mask. So if you've never sewn before, this is actually a great project to start with. You'll just need a hand needle, just any old needle. The little ones that come in your like quick repair kits are totally fine. Some kind of thread. So I have just this embroidery thread that I had lying around. Some fabric. I have cotton fabric that I have left over from a project, but you could also use 100% cotton t-shirt, and that would work as well. And you'll just need around a 12 by 18 inch piece. Probably end up a little bit smaller than that once you cut it down to fit your face, but that's about what you want to start with. And you could cut that out of a t-shirt as well. You'll want a ruler to measure that out and a marker to mark that out so you can cut it. Some kind of scissors that you can use to cut it down. Some hair ties that are going to become the loops for your ears, but you can also use shoelaces or ribbon, anything washable. And then either pins, like sewing pins, or I just have some paper clips today, and that's going to work too. So while you're gathering those things, I'm going to introduce all of our super awesome guests today. So to start, we have Hadassah, who's here with us from Got Masks, Massachusetts, which is a really awesome mask sharing site. So she's going to tell us more about that in just a couple minutes. But she also started the Welcome Blanket Brookline program, which is really cool. And she'll also get to tell us about that. Along with her, also from the Welcome Blanket Brookline program, is Kathy, who has been doing hand sewn masks for people in her community. Priscilla, who's kind of a beginner sewer, but has gotten to learn a whole bunch about sewing through making masks for folks in the Brookline community and has used it kind of as a learning opportunity. And Jewel, who has been working through her quilting stash, making masks for different folks. And they're all here, as well as Joyce from the Brookline Bees. And she's an instructor there. It's a quilting and sewing group at the Brookline Senior Center. And she's also the president at Powerful Patient, which is a patient advocacy group. And they have made YouTube videos about patient advocacy. And she's also here to help teach us how to make our easy sew mask. And we'll have a Q&A with all of them at the end. So if you have any questions, all of them, from folks who are just beginning to folks who are making different kinds of masks and donating them to different places, all of them will be able to share sort of their process and how they've approached this project, because there's been a whole bunch of different ways to do it. So I'm going to pass off to Hadassah to talk a little bit about what Got Masks Massachusetts has been doing.
Thank you, Christiana, and thank you to the Public Library and also to Brookline Interactive for hosting us today. This is fantastic. What I've been saying when we started Got Masks Brookline about 6 weeks ago is that you don't have to be a master sewer in order to make a difference. All you need is to make 2 masks, and that helps one person stay safe, and it helps our community stay safe. So since we launched, we have made and donated over 2,200 masks. And we have close to 50 mask makers who are working on all different patterns, all different types, all different sizes for masks. And we decided a few weeks ago that we actually needed to expand outside of Brookline. We fulfilled most of the Brookline requests so far. Of course, we're ready for more. So if anybody who is watching still needs masks, or if your agency needs masks, or if you know of anybody who needs masks, please go to gotmasksma.org, and you'll see a form to fill out for requests. But because we did so well and our volunteer mask makers are on fire, we are able to now expand to other locations. And if you take a look, so that's why we switched from Got Mask Brookline to gotmasksma.org. And if you look on our dropdown now, we have a number of different communities throughout the greater Boston area. We just added Tewksbury and we just added Northampton, which is really exciting. We are far and wide, which is awesome. And what it is that it's basically an online classifieds. People can post anonymous requests for masks. It can be an individual who just needs 2 masks in order to take walks and go to the grocery store, all the way up to community organizations or frontline organizations who need 1,000 masks, and can people help? So this opportunity that we have right now to learn how to make a handmade sewn mask is going to come in really handy. And if you feel like this is something that's fun, something that you feel you can do, my daughter here is going to help out. This is great for all ages. If you can make 1 mask or 1 mask, you will help make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hadassah. And I think Joyce is going to start us off. She's prepared like some really awesome slides to kind of walk us through this particular mask and the process. So we'll be cutting back and forth between her helpful instruction and then my desk cam to sort of see it in real time.
Great. Thank you, Christiana. So I'm going to share some slides with you that I put together. People ask me what's the right size to use. And of course, faces come in all different sizes. So I put together some numbers to try to help you figure out what size you might want to make. And these are average sizes. It kind of reminds me of the World Book Encyclopedia when I was a kid. It had this girl named Norma that they said was the normal American girl, the average American girl. Well, I was not Norma. And so I'm very sensitive to the fact that you may need to measure your own face and figure out what size you need. So I have this little method that I use. You cut a strip of paper out of any old piece of scrap paper from your wastebasket and measure yourself in 2 different directions, the width and the height of the mask. So you measure from ear to ear, from the inside of your ear to the inside of the other ear, across your nose so that you're sure to have plenty of room for your nose. And then the other measurement to do is from the top of the bridge of your nose to under your chin, but with your mouth open. So that when you open your mouth, you're not stretching your mask, okay? So those are your 2 critical measures, the width of the mask and the height of the mask. And you can work from your own measurements or from these average measurements, whatever you want to do. But you can make whatever size you want. I made 2 for some children the other day. They told me one child was 8 and one child was 3. So I have a smaller size than I make for little kids. And it was too small. And that mask wound up going to his teddy bear, and we made him larger. So what we're going to do first is cut 1 piece of fabric, the width by the 2 times the height. So if you want a 6-inch high mask, you're going to cut it 12 inches by the width measure. And then we'll talk more later about the ear loops, but we'll also be cutting ear loops. So here are your standard sizes if you want to jot these down. For a man, I would cut 12 by 18. For a woman, I would cut 11.5 by 14. And for a child, I would cut 10.5 by 12. And then 9, 8, 7 for the lengths of the straight pieces that you're going to use. Or if you're going to use the ear loops, they're already sort of pre-cut. So Christiana, did you want to show us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So because the piece of fabric I had was so big, I pre-cut before we got started, but I used your measurements. I did another mask yesterday and I did it a little bit bigger. So this one, I'm going to try a little bit smaller. And I went with your sort of recommended woman size of the 11.5 by 14. And I just measured it out with my ruler and marked it out with a Sharpie and then cut it out. I didn't do a super exact job because this is just kind of a quick and easy sewn mask, but you could be a little more precise if you wanted. The other nice thing about this is you're going to end up hiding your like icky hemline on the back inside, so you don't have to see if it's a little bit crooked along the edges. So that I find very nice about this as someone who doesn't always cut in a perfectly straight line, or if you don't have sewing scissors to help you do that, that would be good.
Right. And notice that the fabric is taller than it is wide. All of those measurements are taller than it is wide. And the width is that narrower measurement, which sounds a little illogical, but you'll see it works. So if you have a fabric that has an up and a down to it, or a should be vertical, should be horizontal, plan it so that the short side is the one that's going to be across your face horizontally.
Right. And as an example, I'm going to get ahead of us a little bit, but as a preview, what we're going to do is we're going to end up doing this. We're going to fold that way. So you can kind of see why you would want, if there's a direction to your pattern, this is going to end up being the wide part because we're going to do a double layer cotton mask.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments while we're here? Great. Let me go back to the pictures then, and I'll show you. I did somewhat what Christy just showed you. I cut out my fabric. If we turn the paper here, come on, go. Come on. Oh, arg. Little pop-up thing maybe fouling us up here. Yes. Okay. So I cut out the fabric and I folded it in half, just what Christiana just showed you. It's the right sides together. If there's a right and a wrong side to your fabric, at this point, we want the right sides together, and we're going to sew along the bottom edge of that fabric about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. And you can sew that with a sewing machine, or you can sew that by hand. It doesn't matter. I went ahead and sewed it by hand. And we're going to make a tube at this point. So just make that seam and create a tube.
Great. So I'm going to fold this up. They call it hamburger style, I think, in elementary school. And if I had a nice pretty pattern on this, I would want it to be on the inside here because we're going to end up flipping it inside out after this step, as Joyce mentioned. And I'm just going to I have my hand sewing needle today. This will go super fast if you have a sewing machine, but it's a little noisy on the camera, so I'm not using that today. And I'm just going to do a really simple running stitch. If you wanted a really nice clean finish, you could look up how to do a back stitch so it's really tight and perfect, but today I'm just going to do a running stitch, and that's kind of what you think of when you think of sewing. So I'm just going to go down into the fabric and pull it back up through and down in and up through. And you're kind of creating little accordion happening, and then I can just pull the needle through and get just this really quick stitch done.
Terrific. What I sometimes do is when I come up like that at the end of that row of accordion pleats, I'll just do one little back stitch before I start the next run. And it just makes it a little bit tighter and smoother, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway you fasten it together is perfectly fine. You see some arms stretching out. Good job here.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the right thing. No. think I didn't do it right. Are you all seeing my slides or not?
I think we are still looking at the table at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So while you all are busy, I will pull up my slides. Great. So here we have the seam that you all are working on. And once you've got it together and you've fastened your thread off at the end, make sure it's nice and secure, then we're going to turn it right side out. So you've created a tube and we'll turn it right side out. And once you've turned it, then you need to just press it and make it nice and flat. And when you press it, you want the seam to be in the middle of the back side of the mask. And if you don't have an iron there, don't worry about it. You can we call it finger pressing. You can just smooth it out with your hands and make it flat.
Great. So yeah, so I finished my stitch all the way along the top here, and I'm just going to flip it inside out. And put that seam right in the middle and flatten it out.
Great. So our faces are not entirely rectangular, so we need to change the shape of this, the way it's going to lay across our faces. So what we're going to do right now is pleat that. And shrink the sides to be more like 3 inches. So here I've created 2 pleats. I'm making a children's size mask in my model here. So I'm going to put 2 pleats in, but for adult masks, you probably are going to want 3 pleats. And what you want to aim for is to get it about 3 to 3.5 inches on the end. 3 max for children, but 3.5 is fine for adults. So just pleat it down like that because you want it to be flat. It's going to lie against your face, right in front of your ear. And we don't want it to be too bulky at that point. So pleat those down and put some pins or paper clips or something or other to hold your pleats in place.
Great. And so these were my first ever pleats. I've never made pleats before, but it was really simple and easy. So you basically just pinch a little bit below the top and fold with your catch the part right below it with your finger and fold down. And then you'll do that again. So you'll pick up the part you just had, use your finger to catch that fabric and create a little fold until you have some nice little pleats on the sides. And then I just did 3 here, and then I'm gonna pin those down with my paper clips. And this just allows us, because like Joyce said, your face is not actually a rectangle. This allows the fabric to stretch out wherever the pleat is to fit over your nose and the shape of your chin so that you get a better seal around the edge. Because if you just stretched, a pillowcase across your face and strapped it on, it's not going to actually fit to the shape of your face. And we're going to do a really nice and easy running stitch again along both of these edges.
As Christy is showing you, we're going to just fasten this edge down so that it doesn't come undone. and just make a running stitch along the side to hold those pleats in place. Again, about 1/4 of an inch from the end. And then we're going to start talking about ear loops. So while you're doing that, let me talk a little bit about ear loops. I think that some of you have scrunchies or hair ties or something like that, and they need to be a little longer, not just the ponytail kind, but a little bit longer than that. Figure it's going to need to go around your ear, and you want it to be comfortable, something that you're going to be willing to wear for at least an hour. The feedback we have from nurses who've been wearing these all day long is that sometimes their ears get sore. So you want something to be particularly comfortable. I've used 1/4 inch elastic. Wider elastic will make your ears sore. 1/4 inch is good. Shoelaces, especially the flat shoelaces. And I'll show you one that I made with shoelaces. You can take a slice of a stocking. So if you have an old stocking, your slices should be about 1.5 inches. And you can see here, I have taken, this is just a knee-high stocking, and I sliced off the toe, and then I made a couple of slices here, and that actually does pretty well. So it's soft and nice on your ear. And the other thing that you can do is do various kinds of ties. You can cut a 1.5 inch strip of t-shirt material, and it'll kind of curl up to make a tie. So there are lots of choices. So think in terms of comfort first. That's the main thing, because you don't want to get irritated and start fussing with your mask and feeling like you need to take it off. That's going to be counterproductive. We want you to be comfortable in it. If all you can get is 1/2 inch elastic, you can actually split it. It has little ridges, and this is blown up so you can see this is really only 1/2 inch elastic, but there are 3 ridges on this side, 3 ridges on that side. And I took my scissors and I'm cutting up the middle, and these ridges will actually guide your scissors. So if you cut gently and slowly, the scissors will not cross those barriers. It'll do very nicely. And this is the shoelace that I was using. And again, 9 for men, 8 for women, 7 for children. You cut the lengths, cut 2 lengths. In this case, I'm using a shoelace. And we'll start putting together our ear loops. What are you all using for ear loops?
I have a couple of hair ties. They're a little bit of a looser hair tie, so they're not super tiny. So they're a little more flexible. So like kind of a slightly worn out hair tie might actually be better for this. So it's a little softer in your ears.
That's a good thing. Yes. Jewel, you mentioned that you had something that you were using too. I think you're muted, hon. Turn your mic on. But she's got scrunchies, I think, that are also softer and larger.
You know what? The first time I bought them, I bought the medium ones, and those kind of hurt your ears. So I just do them on my own. You know, they're thicker, but these are the gentle ones. Okay, so
Okay.
They're softer, and you could get like 100 for $5 or something like that. I ran out of elastic, and I had some bias tape stash, and I'm done with the bias tape too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
By the middle of March, it was almost impossible to get 1/4 inch elastic or also the interfacing.
I didn't even bother. I just opened up my stash and I found this stuff because my mother used to come and she used to bring all the elastic and all that. And I opened up one shoebox and I said, wow, I had 6 yards of elastic. It's all gone, but you know.
I know I went to
recycle it.
I went to order 1/4 inch elastic, and it said you can only get 1/2 inch, and that it was going to take a month to deliver it. And I thought, oh, what the hey? So
I know.
ordered $85 worth of 1/2 inch elastic. It took a month to get here, but meanwhile, I used up all the bias tape I had in the house, all the shoelaces, everything else I could find.
Oh yeah, I found all these old shoelaces and I washed them. They were the kids, you know.
Right.
And then also there were those elastic shoelaces.
Yes.
I had a couple of those are really good too, you know. Yeah.
That's 1/4 inch elastic.
Yeah.
So we see that Christy's ready with her hair ties. So we're going to put those over the end and fold back that raw edge. So if you put the hair tie about a half inch from the end of the fabric and then fold back a half inch, that's the casing that we're going to be making. And we'll fasten that back, but make sure that the hair tie can move freely in that little channel that we've created.
And if you have sewing pins, you can actually even do it all in one step and just do one, and you're using like your sewing machine that can really just dive through all these layers. You can even just do all of this folding and then run it through once. With hand sewing, it's a little tricky to do it all at once. I did it yesterday. I did just one set of stitches, but it was pretty brutal.
I wanted to show you how, if you're using a shoelace or quarter-inch elastic, you need to create that loop. With the hair ties, you already have a loop, but here you've got something just straight and flat. So what I did was a simple, again, just a back stitch, and I've just gone over each end of the overlap. It's overlapped about a half an inch, and then I just sewed that little bit. I didn't get too fancy with sewing it together. It will hold pretty nicely. Neither one of those is going to ravel on you. And just in case you need to adjust it, it's better if it's not too wonderfully sewn together, to tell you the truth. So you create that, you loop it around the mask like you saw Christy doing, and then turn back that last half inch and pin it in place or fasten it in place in some way. So we're making a casing for that loop that will, so it'll slide freely in there. And at the same time, we do want to encase that, because now this is going to be the finished end. So what I've done is I've used a whip stitch. You just go down, up, but from the healthy fabric to the tip of what we've turned back. And you can see it kind of overcasts that raw edge. It'll make it a little bit more secure so that when it goes through the wash, it's not going to get all torn up. Okay. How are we doing, ladies?
Good. Yeah, so you can see I've fastened mine, a little hair tie here with some paper clips. I'm starting to stitch in here.
Joyce, can you just remind us how long the elastic or hair tie should be for the different sizes, please?
Yeah, my estimate is 9 inches for men, 8 inches for women, and 7 inches for children. And I have to tell you, the first time I made one of these, the ear loops were enormous. And so I wound up having to adjust them. But that's one of the reasons that you want it to travel easily through the casing, because all I did was scoot it around so that I could see the joint. And I undid my little stitches and clipped off almost 1.5 inches, I think, and put it back together and slid it back so that the joined part was inside the casing. And it was great.
And I will say I was very excited because I was actually able to order 1/4 inch elastic for the first time in months a couple days ago on Etsy. I found someone with some.
Yeah, it's beginning to come out of the woodwork now.
I'm very excited. It was very difficult. It's still really difficult locally because I had ordered some from some local sewing shops, but I think all of them are out of it now too.
So another plug for Got Masks MA is that we have not just posts for people requesting masks, but we also have a parts wanted and a parts offered tab. So say you need elastic, so then you can post on our site saying looking for elastic, Or say you just received a donation of a hunking spool of elastic and you'd like to offer it, which I did. And so I'm offering 5 yards for people to use for their masks that they're making. So if there are any other supplies or materials that you need in order to make masks, you can also hop on our website.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I know I hit spots where I can't, I don't know. I think Joyce and some other folks are able to just sew and sew and sew. And I am a less experienced sewer. So I get kind of worn out after a while. But I'll have, bias tape sitting around. And it's a waste for it not to get used by folks who have the stamina or have a sewing machine.
I tend to make them in batches of 10. That seems to be about my attention span.
Yeah.
10 and I'm done for the night. But I can do 10 in about 3.5 hours. So while she's doing that, remember I mentioned that some people were complaining that the elastic was really too hard on their ears. So especially anybody who's going to need to wear it for a long time, or if they have sensitivities in their ears or something, then there is an alternative. You can do it with ties. And I'll show you one that I made with ties, because it's a little bit different. And what I did was I took one big shoelace. This pop-up needs to go away. Okay, there. So I took one big shoelace. This is a sneaker shoelace, so it's like 40 inches long. And I put it in just the exact same way that we were just doing. This one, I'm working on a machine for this one. Or you could use that long strip of t-shirt material we were talking about and sew that into the casings. And I closed up the casing. On a machine, you can use a zigzag stitch if you have it. But again, you want to secure the ends because the ends are going to get somewhere. That's where what you're doing is going to travel through that casing. So here's my one long shoelace that I put on there, and you put the closed part of the loop behind your neck. Put this around your face and then tie the open ends behind your head. So, and I can show you that one.
And I have finished up my stitches on the back here. So I took my paper clips off and we are all set.
Great.
I have a mask.
My daughter just said she already made 2.
Oh, not in this hour.
Well, still, you already made 1.
Hey,
I
Joyce.
did this one yesterday.
We have a question from Facebook. Somebody would like to know what a whip stitch is. If you could explain that a little more.
Well, I can show you the picture again, but it's basically just a simple stitch where you're going around that raw edge. So from the top of the raw edge to about 1/4 inch down. Let me see if I can get my picture back up for you. And it just because it whips around in a circle, basically, like a twist, like a barber pole is basically what you're creating.
And I always find it really helpful to just even like a whip stitch is super common. So if you search for it on YouTube, there are like 1,000 really nice tutorials on how to do one at a time.
There's the whip stitch going. So here I'm going down, up, down, up, down, up. So it's just real easy.
And it kind of circles around that edge, that raw edge, right? So you're going perpendicular to your original stitches.
Right, and you're essentially binding that raw edge. There's a fancier one you can do if you're really into it. You can use a buttonhole stitch or a blanket stitch or something, but whip stitch is the simple one. So, and that will do the job.
And we always like to plug one of our favorite online resources at the library is called Creative Bug, and they also have some really wonderful sewing and embroidery tutorials that will have different stitches like that. So if you live in Brookline, everyone has access to Creative Bug, which is a website that's full of these really beautiful, professionally made craft tutorial videos led by different crafters, professional crafters across the country, and they're really wonderful, and we can't recommend them enough. They're super great. So I think we were all gonna, do we all want to show off? How far along are we doing? Does everyone have either a mask they made during this session or at another point that they could show off for folks?
Sure. And I'm modeling the one with the one long shoelace. So you can see that it ties behind the head. Nice, Priscilla. I like it. And you're using ties also, right? Yeah. So she's got essentially 4 ends that she's tying in behind her head.
We have another question on Facebook. Yep. Somebody wants to know what was the name of the creative website?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's called Creative Bug. And the easiest way to get to the login for that is at brklib.com/creativebug. So I'm sure will be able to link to that in the chat. It's super great. It's also on our website under the e-resources section. Great. And the other thing that we made, actually, Joyce, you mentioned sort of that ear fatigue problem. And if you already have a mask that has ear loop straps and it's kind of uncomfortable for you, we actually did another craft along a few weeks ago. Myself and Tiffany, one of the other librarians, made crochet and knit ear savers, they're called. So we did a crochet one and a knit one, and they're basically just a tiny little crocheted or knit rectangle with buttons sewn on. So you can convert these elastic straps into an elastic back of the head loop.
Great.
So it hooks around the back of your neck, and that takes kind of the pressure off the backs of your ears, but also means you don't have to tie anything, which I know can be kind of difficult to do backwards and sideways.
Yes.
And I know, Joyce, you said that you had gotten a lot of questions sort of about how to wash the masks. Were you going to give us a demo today, or did you just want to talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead. You talk for another 1 minute and give me time to go set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joyce is going to take us over to her sink and show us sort of the process for how you maintain these masks. And again, we're just using cotton, so that could be anything that any like leftover quilting cotton is great. That's what this is. It's from another like costume that I made for Halloween one year. But you could also be using a t-shirt and cutting a square out of that. That's, I think, really nice because it has like, the soft feel of a t-shirt. It's much more comfortable than some of the quilting fabrics. But what I know there's been a bunch of different solutions to doing that. Anything that you can like upcycle into things have been really great. So kind of breaking through those old stashes.
I think we're ready. If you can swap to my other camera.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna join Joyce over by the sink, I think. Oh, awesome. Oh, I think we're looking at your Listerine.
Hi. So hopefully my water's not making too much noise. But you can see I'm washing it just like I would wash my hands. Just soak it up. And you need to do this for 20 seconds. And just push it through. And you gotta get some soak up because this coronavirus is sensitive to soap. So soap is enough to kill it. But we do need to do it for 20 seconds and then rinse it out and hang it to dry. Any convenient spot for that is very big. And I just hang it on a hook of my dustbin.
Awesome. That's like so quick and easy. That's really nice.
So hopefully that worked.
Yeah, and Joyce, could you just repeat the question? Could you repeat sort of that process? Your mic was just a little funky with the running water.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so you wash it basically just like you would wash your hands. So I just took the mask and rubbed the soap into it and played with it for about 20 seconds. You just squish it with your soapy water and then rinse it out and hang it up to dry. That's all there is to it because the coronavirus is sensitive to soap. So soap will be enough to kill it. You don't have to go to great lengths to use antiseptic or anything. Soap will do it.
Awesome. So I think we wanted to sort of wrap up with just sort of an FAQ session. If there are specific questions from folks online who are watching, we're happy to take those. Otherwise, I have some questions for folks, and I'd love to hear just from our panel of people here today, sort of their experiences, any kind of challenges that they've faced in getting in going through this project and how they've worked around them. So I don't know, do we have a volunteer to sort of get us started about like how they've been, have you all, we've heard a little bit from Joyce and Hadassah, but Jewel and Priscilla and folks and Kathy, have you been distributing your masks through Got Masks MA, or have you been donating to your friends or some local organizations?
I will happily start.
Awesome.
So I had a major workaround, but I really decided I really wanted to try a go at making masks. And I was talking to Hadassah, and I really love dabbling and learning to use my sewing machine, but I really wasn't comfortable cutting patterns. It wasn't something I knew how to do. And Hadassah then said to me, you know, it's funny. I actually love sitting there with my cutting board with my rotary cutter and cutting the fabric. So we've become somewhat of a team. It's been fabulous. And I would only say that the way that Hadassah has mentioned in Got Masks, people are said, oh my God, I have nothing but elastic. In all of these communities, you learn that people have different skills and different strengths. And so it's been amazing that the finished product has actually happened. And I can't actually believe that I've been involved in being able to create it. We've been working on masks, cutting a pattern that Hadassah is comfortable cutting. And then as Joyce mentioned, sewing straps, and they're extremely comfortable to wear. So there's no irritation. You tie the straps, and these have been fantastic. So I applaud Hadassah for making this community possible.
And here's just one Priscilla creation.
Oh, I love the fishies.
Yeah. Oops. Sit down. Here we go.
That's so awesome. Yeah, Jewel, how did you where have you been working? Have you been
Okay.
distributing through Gus as well?
For those of you who I practically live at 4A Coffee, so this is some fabric that had Express on it. So I made masks for the owners, and yeah, I just had them on today. And so then people would see the mask and they would ask me, and I would make 2 for them. And some people would have paid me. I said, no, it's okay. And then my friends started asking me, and so my friends started asking me, and they said they brought out their sewing machine, which they haven't touched for about 30 years. And they couldn't figure out the pleats. So one of my friends just had a birthday. So I sent her 6 masks, 2 for her husband and 4 for her, and I was trying to get rid of my quilting stash and couldn't get out of the house. And one of the things I find with the quilting fabric, because it's thicker, it holds better. And so many people were looking through their stash and said, my fabric's too thin and all that. So I just got it. I just gave them to friends. And I gave to a lot of people here in Brookline. Some of my friends from the senior center, we've been doing some social distancing. So every time there's social distancing, I come. We had 6 people last time, so I made 6 masks. Everybody got one. And everybody got one of these Mickey masks last time. So I don't know, because I look at the mask website, and I said, I can't do 10, but I've been giving them to people around Brookline, like people in businesses. I said, hey, you guys, you want a mask? You says, I like your mask. I said, hey, you want one? I said, okay. So I show up the next day with 2 masks.
That's awesome.
Terrific.
And Kathy, I know you said you've been hand sewing a bunch of masks, right? You don't have a machine at home, so you've been doing.
Me, Kathy? This Kathy?
Oh, we have 2 Kathys now.
Oh.
Good.
Go, Kathy Lahar. You go.
Oh, Kathy. No, Kathy. Is it me?
Yes.
I do the tie in the back, and I make the kind that has a little pocket in the front. So the inner lining is like a pocket. So people who like to use filters can stuff the mask with the pockets. And I put a little paper clip. I sewed it in with, now I learned the new term. What was that stitch? Your stitch, what was it called?
Okay. The whip stitch.
The whip stitch, yes. Before I turn it right side out, it's basically, it looks
Very
like
good.
this.
Yeah, for people who may not be familiar with them, it's useful to have something over the bridge of your nose that allows you to bend it to the right shape for your nose so that you don't have gaps between the mask and your face. And you can do that with, as you say, a paper clip. You can do it with
pipe cleaner.
I can't show it because I first just put the paper clip, I stretched out a paper clip and cut it in half. And then I laid it across the thing, bent it a little bit to the curve. And then I whip stitched the thing on.
Yeah.
And then when I turned it, did the turning inside out, I think the techie term is top stitch.
Yes.
I stitched on top I stitched all the way around. I am not very good at showing this. I stitched it all the way around with,
around the wire.
Well, all around the edge. That instead of ironing, I just top stitched.
Okay, very good.
And basically, yeah, not very good at explaining this, but
I think you did.
And Kathy, you mentioned you did leave a pocket for a filter, it looks like we have a couple questions from folks on Facebook about whether or not are filters necessary? What do you use for a filter? Would it be possible to sort of adapt the hand-sewn mask we did today to include a filter? I know, Joyce, you've done a lot of research into sort of material options and filter options.
Well, the simple way to do a filter pocket is when in making the mask we did today, instead of sewing all the way across that long seam, you sew it sort of a third of the way across and then skip a third and sew a third. So you have an opening there in the middle. And you can tuck something in there if you wanted to. Is it necessary? I don't think it is. I think the thing you have to be careful about is what are you putting there in front of your nose to be inhaled into your lungs. So, you know, a plain Kleenex might be okay. Even paper towels give me pause because they put, you know, air freshener kind of things into them so they smell good in your kitchen. And do you really want to have that in your lungs? So I think I have a lot of misgivings about filterings. The CDC recommendations is 2 layers of cloth, and that's sufficient to do the job for most people. For our healthcare workers, it's not enough. But for ordinary people who are doing social distancing, it is enough. So I don't think you need to go to any great lengths. I think the other thing I'm concerned about with filters is that they are not reusable. So unless you throw them away, they can become counterproductive, okay? You need to have it clean and fresh and a new one all the time. I do not like vacuum cleaner bags. Some of those actually have glass particles in them. So be very, very careful about what you put in there. But the important part is 2 layers of cloth.
Yeah. And I heard that if you wanted to, if you want to do a throwaway thing, you can use coffee filters because that's food safe, right?
Yeah.
And or the other thing is if you have any old pure wool socks, you boil wash them, and then they turn dense like felt.
It's called felting
as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Pure wool, and that's okay.
You can use
I personally don't use them.
I've seen people use a little bit of flannel, which would be fine to breathe through. Felted wool would be fine to breathe through. And I agree with you, coffee filters are the ones I'm least concerned about, but I really have big problems with paper towels and with vacuum cleaner bags.
And at the end of the day, I think sort of the takeaway that for the majority of folks who are making their own homemade masks, unless you're a healthcare worker, you know, they're not going to be N95s. They're not going to be the same effectiveness of as surgical masks. So the goal is to have some level of protection and to prevent droplet spread through those layers of cotton, but that sort of heavy filtration gets really complicated really fast in terms of breathability as well. So if you are putting extra layers in, you know, you could keep adding layers of cotton as well, and that might filter better. But the more layers you add, it becomes harder to breathe, and that's going to cause other problems with you being able to breathe. And also, if you're uncomfortable and you're having trouble breathing, you're more likely to touch your face and be messing with the mask and be putting things near your eyes and things like that anyway. So at this point, you know, we're mostly making just the 2-layer cotton masks because that's what the CDC is recommending at this point for most people.
Let me just add one point because my Rotary Club had a presentation from the Brookline Police the other day, and one of the things they wanted everybody in Brookline to know is that some people are excluded from the requirement to wear a mask, especially people with asthma or other serious breathing problems, because even the 2-layer mask can be a problem for those folks. So if you see someone who's not wearing a mask, don't go up and confront them. It's not worth it. According to the law, some people are exempted, and the police are not even allowed to ask if the person has a medical condition that exempts them. So best not to get into that confrontation. Just trust your neighbors and keep your distance.
Good advice.
We do have someone asked if there was another video of a mask that does have a filter, and the original video that we did a couple months ago, one of our first craft alongs was doing a machine sewn cotton mask, and that one does have a pocket for a filter material, or like a surgical mask that could get inserted on the inside if you have folks who are just trying to sort of extend the life of those surgical masks. Some folks were interested in them for that purpose. So we do have a video that's linked on the library website to a pattern for that as well.
Great.
Great. And we just have a couple of minutes left. Were there any other sort of takeaways that any of y'all sort of don't think we got a chance to mention, or advice that you wish you would have had when you first got started as some of the beginners?
Well, I'm glad to see how many people are interested in making masks and undertaking to do them, even with small levels of skill. It doesn't take a lot of skill to make one of these, and I think it's wonderful that you're trying and that you're protecting yourself and your neighbors and your family. That's all very important these days.
Can I ask one last sort of important question?
Sure.
Joyce, you're clearly the expert and you're a part of Brookline Bees. Is there a way to get expert specific questions for you as people go along and take the journey of dabbling in mask making?
Sure. You can write to Brookline Beehive at gmail.com. Brookline Beehive at gmail.com.
Brookline Beehive, singular beehive.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, you are fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's been great to be able to help out. And I think particularly in the beginning, when so many of the hospitals did not have masks, we were scrambling and really making a lot. And as I say, this fabric shop in Washington State has made 250,000 masks with their team. Obviously, it's not all one group, but a large extended team to help out the hospitals there. At this point, most of the hospitals are getting the PPE, but not all. So listen for calls around you. Nursing homes, places like that still need them. Got Masks Massachusetts is doing a wonderful job trying to get everybody outfitted, but the need is still there. My quilting group is now making for a hospital in an Indian reservation in Arizona, which is painfully short on masks and being hard hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's .masks, MA. Is that .com or was that .com, Hadassah?
.org.
.org.
Awesome. And we'll link that in the video description as well, so y'all can head over there, so you know where to go if you need a mask and aren't able to sew it yourself, or if you get really industrious and make a few of these cotton easy sew masks. That would be awesome. Thank you again to each one of you all for joining me today, to Joyce and Kathy and Priscilla and Jewel and Hadassah for joining me to make masks. It's been super great to have you all. We'll be back again next week with another Idea Space Craft Along. We'll be doing, on a completely different note, a couple of our youth services librarians are going to show us how to make fairy houses, which is going to be awesome. And again, thank you to Brookline Interactive Group, who helps us stream all of these programs both online and on public access television on Channel 3. It's been super great to work with them each week, and they've been so helpful in getting this awesome team set up and talking to each other. Thanks so much and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.